Well, what is going on, YouTube? Welcome back to A Therapeutic Edge. Today, on the table in front of us is, well, this is a knife designed by someone I know. This was designed by David over at Blade Banter. This is the Orion Solaris, and this is one heck of a pocket knife. I got to watch this thing grow from drawings to 3D print to these prototypes, and I have been fascinated all the way around. It is a G10 14C28N blade on G10. It is running on ceramic bearings. It is a button lock with thumb studs and a flipper tab that, as you can see, is really, really done well. David spent a long time on geometry, making sure that both the opening methods on this worked beautifully, including just using the button. This is a spectacular knife. Now, I wouldn't say that if I didn't mean it, even though I know the guy. But I got to tell you, he has really done something special here. This one, because it's a prototype, has T6 screws and T8 at the pivot. The actual production models, which will look almost identical to this, will have T8s all the way around, or maybe a T10. I just know that he is increasing the screw size so that for those of us that like to take our knives apart, we have a much easier task with it, and I think that is genius. Now, as I mentioned, the blade is 14C28N. That is going to stay that way. There are two models. This one is the sort of high-polished satin, and then there is a stonewash version, and I got to tell you, I think that I would have preferred the stonewashed because this is a bit of a fingerprint magnet. But let's talk about the knife itself. The reason that he went with 14C28N and the reason that he's done G10 and all of this is because this knife is going to come in, under 90 bucks. That's going to be the price, under 90 bucks for a button lock on G10 with 14C28N steel with this much thought that went into it. Man, it is just gorgeous. Look at the titanium pocket clip. The action on this knife is out of this world, which is great because it's called the company is Orion, and this is the Solaris, so out of this world makes sense. Now, because it is a button lock, it is a right hand tip-up carry only. Not a lot of lefty love going on here. Although, you can pop this off and switch it, but the button will remain on the left, activated on this side. So, while it is a knife that you can swap around and use both right or left hand carry, because of where the button is, it's more of a right hand carry knife. Let's talk about that blade shape. I love this blade shape. It has enough belly up here at the tip for fine work on the table. It's got a great flat for push cuts. Because it has this nice sort of high saber grind, right? It comes down to a really, really slicey edge. This thing is a razor blade. It has this marvelous choil at the front. Now, you can hold it back here, and there is enough room for all of my fingers back here, but it is clearly designed to be held just this way, and it is very comfortable in this condition. I love that action. It has these marvelous red pivot collars, pivot rings. The other accent, of course, is that the G10 backspacer is also red. There will be a blue version of this, I think, in the final production run. A lot of knives sort of appear on the market that have clearly been made with a higher emphasis on style than on function. And I watched David work his tail off to create a knife that possesses both. This is an exceptionally well-styled knife that also just has a ton of good function. It has been a joy to carry and to use. Let's go ahead and get some size comparisons out of the way. Here it is against the PM2. As you can see, handles-wise, it is very similar to the PM2 with slightly shorter blade. Here it is against the PM3, which it's just bigger. It fits beautifully, actually, in between these two knives, size-wise. And for a very large knife comparison, here it is against the Benchmade Contigo, which is a monster in its own right. And as you can see, It is a really right-sized knife for EDC. David did a really good job here. He really did. I am thoroughly impressed. And the fact that it's a button lock makes me so happy. I love this action. I really do. The fact that he worked, so, as I mentioned, so diligently to make sure that both the flipper tab and the thumb studs were in alignment so that it didn't matter which one you preferred, both work spectacularly well, is just a nod to his energy and effort. Let's go ahead and measure it out. Now that we've seen it up against other knives, let's talk about what you actually get. You get 1, 2, 3, just over, hold on, just at 3 inches of cutting on just under 3.5 inches of 14C28 in blade steel. From the choil, you get 1, 2, 3, 4, and 3/4 inches of handle. From behind the flipper tab, you get 1, 2, 3.5 inches of handle. So any way you choose to hold this, you are going to be doing very well. It is comfortable in hand from any position, including, you know, if you're gonna, I don't know, get into an argument at a gas station, this knife is well suited. It is very comfortable in hand and reverse hammer grip. It is excellent for push cuts, as I mentioned. Even from behind the flipper, it is great. But if you come up on that large, really generous and comfortable choil, it is really good for push cuts this way. And because of the shape of this blade, if you come forward, it is just excellent for draw cuts. This is a just situated and well-designed knife. David, you've done a remarkable job, man. You really have. Let's get the blade stock and other goodies out of the way. Blade stock at its thickest is just at 3 millimeters, which is why it comes down to such a nice edge. The handle is 13 millimeters, or just a hair over a 1/2 inch. It is a very nice lean knife. It is exceptionally comfortable in hand for it. It does eat up a little bit of pocket real estate. If we lay it out here, you can see that it's just a little over 1.5 inches from top to bottom. But the way he designed this very, very small flipper tab, it just doesn't get in the way. And when the knife hangs in pocket, by the way, look at that. That's all the knife you got showing right there. While it's not loop over deep carry, it is still a deep-ish carry knife. And look, this is a great carry. It really is. I have very much enjoyed having this thing in my pocket. I'm going to be sad when it leaves, and I will be buying one for sure, because it's awesome. Let's go ahead and get the weight out of the way while I play with the action a little more. All right, we come in at 4.8 ounces. Coming up on 5 ounces, it's not a lightweight, but as I have mentioned before, when a knife is balanced correctly, you don't really need it to be ultralight, because when it's balanced right, it still sits in the hand exceptionally well. And for this knife, the balance point is just right. It's just good. It's just very, very good. Now, you guys know I have a preference for larger knives, but I have mentioned many times that when a not enormous knife is done really, really well, it absolutely catches my eye and attention. A great example of that would be the PM3 here. This is not a big knife, but because of the way Spyderco designed the handle to blade ratio and the way the handle is shaped, it is exceptionally comfortable even for my giant mitts. This, a little bit bigger, still not an enormous knife, is much the same way. All of the thought and energy that David put into this knife absolutely shows when it's in hand. The Orion Knives Solaris is, or Solaris, S-O-L-A-R-I-S. Solaris? I don't know. I do know that this knife is absolutely worth your energy and your attention. You can find it over on Orion Knives. I will put the link to the website in the description for this video. If you're interested in more information on this, over on Blade Banter, David's channel, there is an entire disassembly video, which I think you should absolutely go check out. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up there. This as I said, is the Orion Knives Solaris. I have been a Therapeutic Edge. This knife was designed by David over at Blade Banter, and I think he has done a marvelous job. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.